Good evening, everyone. Let me ask you something. Have you ever looked in the mirror and felt like you're living inside an outdated version of yourself? Like you're still wearing the mindset of someone who settled? Still reacting like the person who was once overlooked? Still chasing validation with the insecurities you should have outgrown years ago? Here's the uncomfortable truth. You don't need a tragedy to change. We all have that version of ourselves we've lived with for so long, it almost feels like truth. It's the version shaped by what we've been through, how people treated us, the mistakes we made, the chances we didn't take. That version becomes comfortable, familiar, safe. And because it's familiar, we keep reading that same chapter over and over again like it's the only part of the story that matters. But it's not. It's just a chapter. And the danger comes when we start treating that chapter like it's the whole book. People walk around every day, defining themselves by who they were. They say things like, "I've always been like this," or "This is just how I am," or "That's not really me." And what they're really saying is, "I've stopped writing." They've handed over the pen to fear, to doubt, to comfort. They've made peace with a story they've outgrown. But here's the thing, your story isn't over. The fact that you're breathing means there's another page to turn. There's more to be written. And if you don't consciously pick up that pen and decide how the next chapter goes, the past will keep ghostwriting your future. Maybe someone broke your heart and now you tell yourself love never works out for you. Maybe you failed at something big and now you keep playing small because it's safer not to try. Maybe you grew up around negativity, scarcity, criticism, and now every time something good shows up, you sabotage it because deep down you don't believe you deserve it. That's not truth. That's just a page. That's just a moment you lived through. But you're not supposed to live in it forever. Think of it like this. Imagine watching a movie where the main character goes through something painful in the first 20 minutes. Now imagine the rest of the movie is just them replaying that pain over and over, talking about it, living in it, never moving forward, never growing. At some point, you'd sit there and think, is anything else going to happen in this story? But that's exactly how so many people are living. They're stuck in emotional reruns. They're living a life where the only thing being rehearsed is regret. And the problem with living in the past is that it blinds you to opportunity. When you're focused on what was, you miss what is. You miss the growth you could step into, the people you could meet, the love you could receive, the strength you didn't even know you had. Your past is supposed to be a reference point, not a residence. You're supposed to learn from it, not live in it. But to do that, you've got to be brave enough to turn the page. And turning the page means letting go of the identity that was born from survival. It means saying, that version of me got me here, but it can't take me further. And yes, that's hard. Yes, it can feel like betrayal. You might have to outgrow relationships, mindsets, routines, even dreams you once had. But growth has never been about staying the same. It's about making peace with what was while still choosing what can be. When you turn the page, you stop saying, "This is just how I am," and start asking, "Who do I want to be?" You stop waiting for permission to heal. You stop needing validation to evolve. You realize the chapter may have hurt you, but it doesn't own you. And once you take ownership of your story, you stop being a victim of your past and start being the author of your future. And no, it's not always easy. Sometimes the next chapter starts with loneliness. Sometimes it starts with walking away from people who only know the version of you that's no longer real. Sometimes it starts with taking action you don't feel ready for. But the truth is, most of the time, growth feels more like loss at first. You're shedding, you're releasing, you're unlearning. But every time you do, you make space for what's next. So, the next time you catch yourself saying, "I'm this way because of what happened," pause and remind yourself that was just a chapter. A powerful one, maybe even a painful one, but not the final one. Not even close. The pen is in your hand now. Don't let the next page look like the last just because you're afraid to write something new. Keep writing. Keep becoming. Your story is still being told. Let me know if you'd like similar expansions for the other keynotes or a video voice-over version. There's a version of life that you daydream about. You know the one I'm talking about. The confident you, the disciplined you, the fulfilled you. The one who wakes up with energy, sets boundaries without guilt, walks into a room with presence, earns what they're worth, and isn't afraid to want more. That life isn't just possible, it's calling you. But here's the catch: that life. It's incredibly inconvenient. It won't fit inside the comfort you've built. It won't wait for you to feel ready. And it definitely won't show up if you're only willing to do what's easy. The life you want will challenge the way you think, confront the habits you lean on, and expose the excuses you've been rehearsing for years. That's what evolution demands. Not comfort, but confrontation. And that's why most people never evolve. Because comfort is seductive. It gives us just enough to not feel desperate, but never enough to feel alive. It whispers things like, "You've done enough today," or "You'll try again next week." Comfort doesn't scream, it soothes. It lulls you to sleep with routine. It convinces you that things are fine even when you know deep down they're not. Comfort wants peace. Growth wants progress. And those two things don't always coexist. Think about what growth really looks like. It's messy. It's inconvenient. It interrupts your schedule. It demands early mornings, uncomfortable conversations, unfamiliar environments, new standards, emotional effort. It requires you to stretch, mentally, emotionally, physically, until you can't go back to who you were before. It asks you to show up even when no one is clapping. It tells you to say no to what feels good now so you can build what feels right long term. That's why most people settle. Not because they don't want more, but because they're unwilling to give up the comfort they've grown attached to. You say you want confidence, but you won't step into discomfort to build it. You say you want love, but you keep entertaining patterns that are easy, not healthy. You say you want success, but you won't tolerate boredom, discipline, or the grind that greatness requires. The truth is, the next level of your life isn't hidden. It's just protected. And the gatekeeper is your willingness to be uncomfortable. You don't get to evolve and stay the same. You don't get to keep the same morning routine, same circle, same thought patterns, and magically wake up with a different result. Something has to change. Something has to die for something better to be born. And that's not poetic, it's practical. You can't hold on to your comfort zone and become someone new. You can't cling to the version of you who avoids, procrastinates, distracts, and expects everything to be convenient, and then wonder why nothing is changing. Look at anyone who's living a life that inspires you, and I promise you, it was never built on comfort. It was built on deliberate, repeated decisions to do the hard thing, to take the meeting they felt unqualified for, to walk away from people who felt like home but didn't feel like truth, to stay in when it was easier to go out, to speak up when it was safer to stay silent. You're not stuck because your dream is impossible. You're stuck because it's inconvenient, and comfort has taught you to avoid inconvenience. But there's nothing convenient about greatness. There's nothing comfortable about becoming someone who doesn't shrink to fit the world around them. So if your habits are built for survival, don't expect them to produce transformation. If your mindset is built to maintain, don't expect it to create. If your circle is built on nostalgia, don't expect it to challenge you. Growth will never knock politely. It will bang on your door and ruin your schedule. It will ask you to get up earlier, work later, speak louder, feel more. It will ask you to let go of the easy version of life to step into the one that requires your full self. And you'll want to retreat. You'll want to hit snooze, avoid the discomfort, tell yourself it's not the right time. But here's what you need to remember: comfort will wait for you. Growth won't. If you don't move, your dream will. It'll find someone else who's ready to be uncomfortable enough to claim it. So ask yourself, do you want comfort? Or do you want change? Because you don't get both. Would you like me to continue with the next keynote in the same format? There comes a point where growth doesn't look like doing more. It looks like stepping back, creating space, Not just physical space, but emotional, mental, energetic distance from everything that's been shaping who you are and limiting who you could become. Because the reality is, you can't upgrade your life in the same environment that trained you to shrink. You can't evolve while staying surrounded by people who expect you to play the same role, speak the same way, laugh at the same jokes, accept the same limits. These people may love you, but they love a version of you that you're trying to outgrow. And staying around that long enough will have you believing that growth is betrayal. It's not. It's necessity. If you're serious about transformation, there will come a time when you have to isolate. Not forever, but long enough to remember who you are without the noise, without the opinions, without the familiar pressures. You have to go quiet so you can go deep, because the upgrade you're chasing, it requires clarity, and you can't get clarity in chaos. We talk a lot about discipline. We talk about motivation and hustle and leveling up. But what we don't talk enough about is how lonely that level up actually is. No one warns you that your evolution might cost you your circle, that it might cost you your social calendar, that it might cost you the comfort of being understood. But that's the trade. The more you become who you're meant to be, the less recognizable you might become to the people who only know who you used to be. This isn't about arrogance. It's not about thinking you're better than others. It's about refusing to be defined by people who only ever met your past. You have to stop expecting everyone to see the version of you that you haven't even fully become yet. That's your job. That's your responsibility. And sometimes the only way to unlock that version is to be alone long enough to meet them yourself. Think about it. When you're constantly surrounded by energy that reflects who you were, it's incredibly hard to act like the person you want to be. You may have moments of clarity, bursts of inspiration, but you're pulled back again and again by expectations, by patterns, by your environment reinforcing the very identity you're trying to shed. That's not growth, that's looping. So you step back, you say no more often, you choose solitude over noise, you stop explaining yourself, you stop watering yourself down so you can stay digestible to people who never evolved themselves. You take the space to ask real questions. What do I want? What habits no longer serve me? Who am I becoming when no one is watching? And yes, it gets quiet. Yes, it can feel isolating. But don't confuse isolation with loneliness. Isolation is where alignment begins. It's where you stop reacting and start reflecting. It's where you stop living by momentum and start living by intention. You'll start to notice things. That some of the people you thought were cheering for you were actually cheering for your comfort. That some relationships weren't built on love, but on familiarity. That some conversations drained your energy because they were always rooted in who you used to be. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. You start to protect your peace more aggressively. You realize that the right people won't need you to shrink to be close to them. That the next version of your life doesn't require permission. It requires distance. Not as punishment, not in anger, but with peace. With quiet confidence that says, I'm still becoming. And the people meant for that version of you will meet you there. Not out of guilt, not out of obligation, but because they've been evolving too. See, this temporary isolation isn't just about cutting things off. It's about making room for new thoughts, new relationships, new standards. Making room for a lifestyle that doesn't require you to explain, defend, or apologize. Making room for your upgrade. So if you find yourself feeling distant right now, if you're in a season where you don't fit in the same rooms anymore, don't rush to fill the silence. Sit with it. There's something sacred happening there. Something intentional. You're not being left behind. You're being pulled forward. And yes, people may not understand it. They'll ask where you've been, why you've changed, why you're not as available. And that's okay. You don't owe everyone an explanation. Growth is allowed to be private. Just remember sometimes you have to disconnect to reconnect. With yourself, with your purpose, with the next chapter that only begins when you stop living inside the last one. Would you like me to move on to the fourth keynote next? There's a version of you right now that knows how to survive. That version has gotten you through a lot. They've learned how to keep things together when everything felt like it was falling apart. They've built routines, defenses, even successes based on what was necessary at the time. That version of you is not weak. They're not wrong. But they're also not equipped for where you're going next. And this is where most people get stuck, because they confuse loyalty to their past identity with authenticity. They say, "This is just who I am," as if that's a fixed truth. But it's not. It's a decision. One you keep making, often unconsciously, because it feels familiar, even if it no longer serves you. The identity that got you here is not the one that will take you there. The next level of your life, whether that's in your career, your confidence, your relationships, your peace, it will require you to become someone else, not in a fake way, not in a performative way, but in an intentional way. You will have to create that next version of yourself, consciously, deliberately, relentlessly. And the most brutal part of that process, you have to unlearn things that once worked. You have to release habits, beliefs, and even language that once protected you. Because now, they're just keeping you from evolving. You have to stop seeing yourself as the person who's always been the quiet one, or not good with commitment, or bad with money, or too broken to be loved. Those are not truths. Those are rehearsed identities. Rehearsed so often they've become self-fulfilling. This is what people don't talk about when they say, level up. The next level doesn't just demand action. It demands identity reconstruction. You can't think like a victim and build an empowered life. You can't act like a background character and expect main character results. You can't show up with the energy of someone who's unsure and then ask life to give you certainty. Life doesn't work like that. It mirrors who you are. So ask yourself honestly, who do I need to become for this next level? What kind of boundaries would that version of me set? How would they speak about themselves? What would they tolerate? What would they walk away from? And most importantly, what would they never go back to? Because this is where the sabotage creeps in, not through obvious mistakes, but through old patterns disguised as normal. You'll find yourself slipping back into procrastination because that's just how I work. You'll replay the same relationship dynamics. You talk as the kind of people I attract. You'll talk yourself out of big moves because I've never been that confident. These are not facts. These are limits dressed up as personality traits. It's easy to blame circumstance. It's harder to admit that the version of you you're attached to is the reason you keep hitting the same wall. The way you think, the way you carry yourself, the way you respond to pressure. These things aren't random, they're trained, learned, practiced, and if they can be learned, they can also be replaced. But here's the thing, transformation is awkward. Becoming a new version of yourself feels fake at first. It feels forced. It feels like you're lying. But you're not. You're stretching. You're expanding. You're embodying something before it's fully natural. That's how all growth begins. Think about a beginner at anything. At the gym, on stage, in a new role. There's always discomfort. But that doesn't mean it's inauthentic. It just means it's unfamiliar. You have to be willing to look in the mirror and say, "Thank you for getting me this far, but I am no longer available to live like that anymore." That's not rejection. That's evolution. It's recognizing that you're allowed to keep the wisdom of your past without keeping the identity that came with it. Every breakthrough in your life will come down to one decision, choosing the identity that aligns with your future over the one that comforts your past. You have to become unavailable to your own excuses. You have to refuse to keep playing a character that was written during your lowest chapters. You're not there anymore, and you know it. The people who changed their lives are not the ones who had perfect conditions. They're the ones who got radically honest about who they were becoming and did the uncomfortable work of stepping into it. Day after day, before it made sense to anyone else. So if you're waiting for permission, this is it. Let go of the version of you that was built in survival. That version is tired. They've done their job, And now it's your turn to become someone new, someone who doesn't just dream about the next level, but lives it. Would you like me to continue with the next keynote in the same format? Every day, you're faced with 1,000 little decisions that shape your future. Most of them don't feel big, they're subtle, they're private, they're quiet, no applause, no fanfare, just you alone, choosing between what feels good right now and what will actually make your life better later. This is the war no one sees, the war between dopamine and discipline, between the quick hit of pleasure and the long game of purpose. And let's be honest, dopamine is seductive. It's easy. It's accessible. It's that scroll that turns into an hour. It's that text you know you shouldn't send. It's the snooze button, the junk food, the comfort show you've already seen 4 times. It gives you nothing new, but it soothes you, just enough to forget you're meant for more. But discipline asks more of you. It doesn't always feel good. It doesn't always feel natural. It's that workout when you'd rather stay in bed. It's writing the page, reading the book, making the call, doing the thing that no one will see. But you'll know you did it. It's choosing what builds you instead of what soothes you. And that choice, that's where everything begins to change. Because let's get something straight. Dopamine isn't the enemy. It's not evil to enjoy pleasure. You're human. Of course you want to feel good. The problem is when you start chasing only that, when your life becomes a constant loop of escape, distraction and temporary highs that leave you emptier afterward. That's the trap. The moment pleasure becomes your default, progress becomes your sacrifice. You say you want a better life. You say you want more energy, more confidence, more peace, more love. But every time you're offered the chance to choose yourself, to actually build that version, you let a momentary craving hijack the mission. And then you tell yourself you lack motivation. No, you don't lack motivation. You lack direction in the moment you need it most. See, discipline isn't about becoming robotic. It's not about removing joy from your life. It's about knowing which joys are earned and which ones are just numbing your potential. It's about knowing that while dopamine fades, discipline compounds. The benefits of a dopamine hit disappear the moment it's over. But the benefits of discipline, they multiply. They grow. They transform you. Pleasure is fleeting. Progress is forever. Because progress becomes part of you. You wear it. You carry it into every room, every decision, every relationship. When you show up for yourself consistently, you start walking differently. You speak differently. You attract differently. That's not confidence from nowhere. That's the quiet power of someone who kept promises to themselves. But here's the truth most people won't tell you: discipline is not always glamorous. It's often inconvenient. It rarely feels good in the moment. No one posts about the hours they spent resisting temptation, sitting in discomfort, or making choices no one clapped for. But that's the work. That's where self-respect is built. Not in the moment you win, but in the 100 moments where you could have slipped and didn't. Every time you choose what builds you, you create separation between the old you and the next level. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's quiet, daily, deliberate. Choosing the gym over the couch, the conversation over the avoidance, the plan over the excuse, the vision over the craving. Eventually, that discipline becomes your identity. It's no longer something you're trying to do. It's just who you are. You become someone who does hard things, not because you love the struggle, but because you love who you become on the other side of it. You will never regret the days you chose growth over comfort. You will never regret the hours spent becoming instead of escaping. The life you want isn't built in big, rare moments of motivation. It's built in the trenches, one choice at a time. And when it gets hard, and it will get hard, you remind yourself why you started. You remember that the small discomfort you feel now is the price of the freedom you're building. That every disciplined choice is a vote for the future version of you. And that version, they're worth it. They're waiting. But they only exist if you show up. So the next time you're tempted to soothe, ask, does this move me closer to who I want to be? Or am I just trying to escape who I am right now? And if it's escape, breathe, pause, and choose differently. Discipline isn't punishment. It's self-love in action. It's choosing your long-term peace over short-term pleasure. Because in the end, the life you want doesn't come from indulging every impulse. It comes from mastering them. Would you like me to move on to the sixth and final keynote next? There's this dangerous idea floating around that people only change when they hit rock bottom. That growth only happens after pain. That transformation requires trauma. And yes, pain can be a powerful teacher. Rock bottom can wake you up. But here's the truth most people miss. You don't have to lose everything to decide you want more. You don't need a collapse to begin rebuilding. You don't have to bleed to grow. But if you keep waiting for life to force you to evolve, it will. It will strip away your illusions. It will take what you refuse to let go of. It will create pressure until you break. Because that's what pressure does. But what if you didn't wait for that? What if you didn't need a breakdown to earn your breakthrough? You don't need permission from pain to grow. The most powerful transformations don't always come from destruction. They come from decision. From looking at your life and saying, this isn't bad, but I know I'm capable of better. That takes courage. Because it's easy to justify staying where you are when nothing is technically wrong. When the job pays okay. When the relationship is fine. When your habits aren't destructive, just unfulfilling. But comfort is a slow decay. It doesn't scream. It whispers. And if you don't pay attention, it will lull you into a life that never asked anything more of you and never gave you anything more in return. Most people don't change because they don't have to. Not yet. They wait for a crisis, for the breakup, for the layoff, for the health scare, for the loss. That's when they start thinking deeply. That's when they start moving differently. But what if you didn't need the world to fall apart to wake up? What if growth was something you chose to do before life forced your hand? That's what real maturity looks like. That's what power looks like. Choosing to evolve before you have no other option. That's what separates those who lead their life from those who just react to it. Proactive growth is harder because it means being honest about your complacency. It means saying, yes, things are stable, but I'm still hungry. I still want more. I still have more to give. And that's not selfish. That's responsible. Because your potential isn't a luxury. It's a responsibility. Wasting it quietly is still wasting it. This is where you have to develop the discipline of discomfort. The ability to stretch yourself when you don't have to. To challenge yourself when everything is fine. To get uncomfortable by choice. Because here's the thing, you're going to experience discomfort either way. Growth is uncomfortable. But so is regret. So is stagnation. So is looking back at your life and realizing you were capable of more, but never demanded it from yourself. So choose your discomfort. Do it intentionally. Set goals that scare you before life scares you into movement. Let go of patterns that feel safe but keep you small. Audit your environment. Shift your circle. Stop telling yourself you need a dramatic reason to start. Needing a crisis to change is like needing a heart attack to start eating healthy. Why wait? Why not protect what's good before it breaks? People who change proactively are dangerous. They're not waiting for a wake-up call. They are the wake-up call. They set standards before pain has to set them. They don't need trauma to humble them because they've already humbled themselves to the truth. There's always more work to do. You don't need to be broken to rebuild. You don't need to be lost to look deeper. You don't need to suffer to decide you deserve better. Don't glamorize rock bottom. It's not a prerequisite for power. If you're already aware that something in your life feels off, even slightly, that's your signal. Don't dismiss it. Don't wait for the storm. Build the foundation now. Because when you grow without the crisis, you move with clarity. You expand from strength, not from panic. And that kind of growth, it's different. It lasts. It doesn't leave scars. It leaves structure. So ask yourself, where in your life are you coasting? Where are you waiting for a disaster to force your hand? What if you didn't wait? What if you made the move now, while you still had options? While you still had energy? While it was still your choice? You're allowed to grow simply because you're ready. not because you're ruined. Don't wait for life to break you open. Open yourself. Now is always a good time to begin.